And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft as we approach the top of a new hour here on this Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us here. Let's keep it moving with more of these top headlines. In addition to some of the coverage we brought you about this very time yesterday, those incredible scenes from the sky overhead at some of those huge agricultural farms, those cannabis facilities there in Ventura County, where federal agents were conducting ICE raids there, but some of these anti-ICE demonstrators and protesters tried to thwart some of those very arrests, and it turned extremely tense, sometimes violent, and we want to get into the aftermath of that. We're finally hearing from the Department of Homeland Security. We're finally hearing from ICE as well. Our colleague, Matt Finn, has it as follows in this reporting that roughly 200 illegal migrants were arrested at the marijuana grow sites in California yesterday, including at least 10 children. Children were rescued from alleged potential exploitation, forced labor, and human trafficking. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. Fox News correspondent William LaJeunesse with more details.
Hundreds of protesters clashed with federal immigration agents in Southern California on Thursday as ICE and Border Patrol agents conduct raids on 2 licensed marijuana farms in Ventura County, where officials found 8 unaccompanied minors, all here illegally. Agents deployed pepper balls, tear gas, and flashbangs, where they were met by demonstrators throwing rocks.
People are welcome to protest. They have their First Amendment rights, but they can't cross that line. They can't impede us from doing our job. That's a felony. They certainly can't put hands on an agent.
The scene became increasingly dangerous when one protester appeared to fire a gun at agents. The FBI now offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to the incident, saying the Trump administration tactics, quote, evoke chaos, fear, and terror within our communities. This as we await a ruling by a federal judge in California that could curtail some federal immigration enforcement by the administration. However, the judge saying any ruling should not be overly broad. Quote, I think it's important for the court not to burden otherwise lawful law enforcement activities.
They want ICE to stop doing this, but if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE is doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
We are expecting that ruling later today. In Los Angeles, William LaJeunesse, Fox News.
William, thanks so much. I want to put up yet another post on X here. Take a look at this. This is from Rodney Scott. He's the CBP commissioner with a photo. He says, these are the juveniles found in the marijuana facility, almost all unaccompanied, one as young as 14. He asks rhetorically, California, are you ready to partner with us to stop child exploitation? Take a look at this photo. Their faces are blurred because they are minors. And that was one of the key aspects to this story yesterday. In addition, U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Asaley, said the FBI has offered a $50,000 award for information leading to the conviction of an unknown suspect who appeared to fire a pistol at federal law enforcement officers yesterday there near Camarillo. Let's bring into the conversation right now someone who covers all of this each and every day. She's extremely well sourced. You know her at the Washington Examiner. That's, of course, Anna Giaritelli. She joins me. And Anna, thanks for being with us here. We're going to get you up in just a moment. We do have a live picture there in Los Angeles, as you can see, as we continue to cover this story. All right, as you can see there, had some issues there, but we do have Anna Giaritelli back with us. Anna, thanks so much for being with us. I wanted to ask you this first, because you cover this each and every day. There is something percolating right now. We've covered it there, this lawsuit in Southern California that groups like the ACLU have brought against the Trump administration to really curtail where and how ICE agents can conduct these raids. We're expecting that ruling later today. How do you think that's going to come down?
You know, I think California is sort of the one leading these efforts to stop ICE from carrying out laws that Congress, including Democrats, have put on the books in the first place. Florida is leaving the Republican charge to help ICE California's on the other side. And I think these organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union are a huge part of that. And their next moves are really going to depend on what happens. I think for ICE, if they have their hands tied as a result of what could happen in this lawsuit, this decision, they're really might begin to focus efforts in other places. Certainly, there's other sanctuary cities across the country that have been less difficult to try to work in, even in Miami. That's been certainly less difficult to work in. Places like Chicago and New York are actually easier than California at this point. And so those ICE officers are not required to stay in California. So you could see them shift where they're conducting their operations and just throw in the towel.
So this was somewhat of the moment that we showed our viewers yesterday as some of these protesters and demonstrators were throwing rocks at some of these vehicles leaving these cannabis farms here. Have you done any reporting to suggest, because this is the question I'm getting a lot, how do these protesters know to go there? How do they know there's an ICE raid that's going to happen? This is rural California. This isn't downtown Los Angeles, Anna.
Yeah, a lot of these farms are part of unions for farm workers and even immigrant workers. And so the word gets out very quickly, like any sort of place. And so I think that is a question, is how are these people finding out? I can't speak specifically to this incident, but certainly I think, like you suggest, there has to be more going on. This is rural, like you're saying. This isn't even in a city where you can maybe get a mile pretty quickly. This is pretty far out from the cities. And certainly, having ICE's presence there, ICE moves in very quickly with law enforcement. So they might need to look at, was information leaked? How did people know what was going on? Did someone internal, not just within ICE, but within the farming community, know this was going to happen, which should not be the case? It does certainly prompt those questions, and possibly an investigation is needed.
So I want to put up this post there on X as well from U.S. Border Patrol Chief Agent there, Gregory Bovino. He notes this, that no fields were raided, just a warrant served on a marijuana grow operation in California that hires illegal aliens and exploits unaccompanied minors here. I think maybe that's being lost in this story and how we tell it and how it's being covered, and maybe you agree with me. Criminal warrants were got, and they were signed off on by a judge for these agents to go there to conduct these raids. More than 200 of these undocumented migrant workers were arrested. Do you feel like there is a sense among the wider conversation as we continue to cover this that ICE agents are just showing up unannounced, without jurisdiction or authority to conduct these types of things? Is that valid or no? Is that what you're seeing?
It's completely valid. In fact, I think the Trump administration is failing to explain to the public why it is going after people in the way it is. They're not even targeting illegal immigrants necessarily. What happens is a side of ICE called Homeland Security Investigations, they're investigators, right? They're not the ones arresting immigrants, but they will serve a warrant or a request saying, we looked at your taxes, something's not right. We looked at something else, it looks like money laundering, something's going on in this business. Those businesses get 3 opportunities over a period of months to satisfy the federal government's request for more information. When they do not comply, which all of this is out of sight, so we have no idea this is happening, then the federal agents or officers will get a warrant from a judge and move into that business. They don't know necessarily that there's illegal immigrant workers. They just know this business is not cooperating and something's going on. And that's what we saw in Nebraska with the meatpacking business that was raided. We've seen this with a number of businesses. And I think the Trump administration needs to be so much more proactive in explaining these aren't raids. These are people moving in to fulfill a warrant because the business didn't comply. And really, it's the workers who are the victims of working for businesses that are not complying with the federal government, and they may happen to be illegal anyway.
And I think we should talk not just about the undocumented migrant labor that is being used in these farms, but the owners of the farms themselves who hire this undocumented labor. Multiple agents arrived yesterday. This is at Glass House Farms. It's a state-licensed cannabis facility which, according to our reporting, is considered illegal under federal law. That was one in Camarillo, California. Another federal warrant was issued at another glass house farm in Carpinteria. What about the bosses at these farms? What liability, what accountability are they going to face?
They're going to be the ones at the epicenter of the federal government's attention. So they're the ones who the government is actually targeting when they move in. The workers are just sort of the secondhand victims who will also pay a consequence if they are illegal immigrants and various other things. In the case of the underage people who are working, a lot of them are unaccompanied minors, which means they came over the border without a parent, without a mom or a dad. And so those people are in the country waiting for their day in court. And I mean, they have no parents here. Who are they living with? So it begs more questions. You know, sometimes children or adults who get smuggled over the southern border have to work off their debts to the cartels. And so that was one of the concerns with the federal agents working this case, about the people that they'd find there may not be there by choice. But certainly the federal government is going to rescue those children, and then it's going to focus its efforts on the people who are leading this operation. Even these legal operations sometimes have illegal tentacles. And so the cartels might still be involved in this operation. Typically, they have their fingers involved in all sorts of illegal cannabis grows, but as well as some that are legal.
Yeah, we're just watching some of the really just incredible scenes. This is from yesterday. Obviously, this is not live. Overhead there at some of these cannabis farms and facilities. It wasn't just cannabis that was growing in some of them, from what I was reading, also tomatoes and cucumbers and other kind of vegetables there. But I have to ask you this. Let's get back to how this is all playing out in federal court. Now, we're awaiting this ruling there in Southern California. And from what I understand, 7 Southern California counties would be under the jurisdiction of that ruling. The ACLU and other groups have brought this case. Is that how they are approaching this? Is that their strategy, to curtail where ICE agents can conduct these raids, how they can do it as well, what they can look for in, stopping someone who they believe may be undocumented, maybe an undocumented possible criminal here? Where is this going to play out in court? Are they going to get a victory, or is the Trump administration going to get a loss here? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm pretty torn. I really see no indication of how this is going to go. But look at what's gone on in Los Angeles. In court, the court has banned this ICE in Los Angeles from being able to go into a home to serve an administrative warrant to go after someone who they believe is a criminal, or someone who's an illegal immigrant, just period, flat out, without a criminal background. And so those types of measures really put handcuffs on ICE and don't allow them to be able to do the work that they need to be able to do to arrest people. And so ICE being, handcuffed by that has actually focused more so on these worksite enforcement operations. And so I think what California is doing, and I should say the ACLU is doing, and these other immigrant rights groups, is trying to see how much we can tie ICE's hands right now. And certainly trying that out in California is an interesting approach, right? Because it's one of the most liberal states. It's known to have judges that are a little more liberal than, say, other states. And so if you can score victories there, they're sort of testing the waters to see, can we implement this playbook, this legal playbook, in other places, and see if it's going to be something that works, and they can try other places over the next 3 years.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of the, maybe you can describe them as policy contradictions playing out within the Trump administration, because, before some of these raids that are so high profile that we've been bringing our viewers, there has been a dialogue, maybe a debate, we'll call it that, inside the Trump administration, the president himself maybe hedging on whether or not some of these raids can take place at some of these large-scale agricultural facilities. To his point, and I'm paraphrasing, he was essentially saying, that many of these undocumented migrants have worked at these massive, massive farms for upwards of 20 years, that maybe they should be exempt from his mass deportation policy. Then you had others, though, in the Trump administration, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, essentially, contradict that publicly, saying everyone who is here illegally undocumented is fair game. Have we seen a resolution to that, maybe policy debate in the White House yet? Or is everyone on the same page?
No, everyone's certainly not on the same page. In fact, the Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, was one of the strongest opponents of raiding these farms and different agriculture businesses, because she knows she's got the agriculture industry calling her night and day saying, you can't do this. You're going to strip us of all of our workers. Prices are going to go up. We're going to have new issues because of this. And so she spoke with President Trump about that, and Trump changed his mind and then went back a few days later. This is earlier in June. And since then, it's been over a month, we haven't seen a resolution to anything. We've seen ICE continuing these operations, not necessarily because they're targeting illegal immigrants, but at the same time, you have White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and White House Border Czar Tom Homan pressuring ICE to carry out more, I don't want to say raids, but more arrests of illegal immigrants. And so how do you get from 1,000 arrests a day to 3,000 a day? You don't want to go door to door trying to find one person at a time. You want to get as many as possible. That's why we're seeing more of these larger scale operations, because it helps the federal government get to those bigger numbers. At the end of the day, Trump wants to achieve 1 million deportations in a year. Certainly, one arrest here and there is not going to make that happen.
Lastly, on this point, Anna, I've been getting a lot of questions, even grappling with this myself, covering illegal immigration. This is what the president campaigned on: mass deportation of everyone who is here in the United States illegally. But I think a lot of other people, viewers, voters, are grappling with, I thought it was those here illegally who are accused of committing very heinous crimes. We were told that they were going to be prioritized first and then everyone else thereafter. But if you are merely here illegally, if you're not a U.S. citizen and you're here in the U.S. country, are you fair game for immigration authorities? Do you understand kind of where I'm grappling with that question that I think is on a lot of people's minds? Is it everyone, or is it just alleged criminals?
Yeah, I don't put my opinion in my work, but it's certainly, I've covered this issue 7 times. I've been to the border over 60 times with the Washington Examiner. It's a gray issue. And the more I learn about it, the more I feel like I don't understand. And that's someone who covers this. It's a really difficult issue. I think the Trump administration, also would benefit from clarifying. When Trump and Vance were candidates, they said, we're going to focus on criminals first. There's 500,000 to 1 million criminal illegal immigrants in the country. And you're right. What we've seen is anyone getting arrested. I was in Florida last week and this week. And this week I was with Florida Highway Patrol. They're helping the federal government arrest illegal immigrants. They're doing traffic stops. And under the 287G program, those officers are able to, if they stop someone who's not a U.S. citizen, they can call over to Border Patrol or ICE and say, we have this person, here's their information, do you want us to bring them in? If Border Patrol or ICE say yes, they bring that person in, and those people are taken to Alcatraz, what the state is referring to as state detention site for illegal immigrants, and go through deportation proceedings. But I think the question is, I'm seeing landscapers, I'm seeing someone who left a job cleaning. I saw a driver texting who was on his way somewhere, all pulled over, their lives just forever interrupted, and all 20 taken to Alcatraz that day. It doesn't look like they're coming back. It doesn't look like they're returning to their families. We saw families crying, and I think that's the question, and the administration needs to clarify, is this now just everyone? Are you done, prioritizing the criminals? We didn't really see any prioritization in the first place, but I think that's what they need to answer to, because a lot of the pushback they get is from the left saying, you're not going after criminals. And even people on the right who voted for Trump are confused and saying, is this going to impact my wallet? And is this happening to regular families whose only offense is illegally entering the country, but now they're, contributing members of society?
But now, just to push back, I mean, for the likes of Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, and others, wouldn't they say that merely coming here illegally, being in the United States as not a U.S. citizen, that is the criminal act now? Wouldn't they say that?
Yeah. You're right, they would. And even the Florida state trooper that I was with, I said to him, you're a father, you're married, you know, what is it like seeing people taking them off the street? And he said, we hope when we pull over a vehicle for a broken taillight or someone not wearing a seatbelt, we're going to find someone who's not an illegal immigrant, or not just an illegal immigrant, but someone who's got a criminal history. They've been previously deported. Someone who's like the best type of find, where we're really getting someone bad off the street. This week, they arrested, or I should say this week, on Tuesday when I was with them, they arrested or took 20 people into custody. One had a DUI and been previously deported, but the others had no criminal record that was coming up for us right then and there. And so at this point, you're right. It's you know, law enforcement is following orders, but I think they also want to prioritize the worst.
All right, Anna Giaritelli, we're going to have to leave it at that. Great reporting as always. We'll talk soon. Have a good weekend, Anna.